the brothers on the chair. If you could just stand up and, if you don't mind, just taking one step back and moving your chair slightly back. And then the sisters as well, if you could sort of shift towards my left and move slightly back, because we might be struggling for space today, so we're going to try and utilize as much as we can. So if you do bear with it, that would be very much appreciated as well. Whilst that's happening, can I ask the brothers as well, if you could all shift as far towards my left. There's a lot of gaps. I think the more left you go, the easier it is for other people to come in. So if you can all stand up and shift towards the left, that would be very much appreciated.
We'll try, but it's really
Tomorrow also, we're taking a break, so tomorrow there will be no program. So Wednesday will be our last program with Sheikh Khani, so just need to bear in mind, tomorrow no program. The programs that are running at MII are going to run as usual, but we won't have Sheikh Khani tomorrow. And then our last program with Sheikh Khani will be on Wednesday, so I just want you to sort of pencil that into your diaries. Secondly, if I could all ask you to please recite so the Fatiha for the sponsors of today's majlis, especially for the deceased of the families of Sister Fatima Raza and Brother Ahsan Raza, after Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Without further ado, if I could now please welcome Sheikh Mohammad Khani to the minbar, and if you could please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن عدوهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، سيما الحجاج بقية الله الأعظم، روحي وأرواحنا له فداء، ولعنه الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So in philosophy of history, sometimes when we look at different historical events, there's a concept where you don't only look at the event at that time or that specific time, but you also look at the event and the impact and influence it had on the course of history as well. So you're not only focused on that specific period of time, but also how it actually influenced the course of history and how it changed the society afterwards as well. So tragedies and events are understood over time as reactions occur. And we have this point. There's a famous Christian Lebanese writer by the name of George Jordak. When he explains about Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam having few followers, what is it that he says? Imam Ali alayhi salam, he was born ahead of his time. The reason why a lot of people, they didn't respect Imam Ali alayhi salam, because he was born ahead of his time. In other words, a lot of the things that he was saying in that society, they couldn't understand what he was saying. They didn't have the capacity to understand what Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam he was saying. Hence, they didn't appreciate his presence in that society. That's why you see in a narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam himself, what is it that he says? غَدًا تَعْرِفُونَنِي وَيَكْشُفُ لَكُمْ سَرَائِرِي. Tomorrow you will recognize me, you will know who I am, and my secrets will be revealed for you. So he's speaking about the future. Why? That's why you see only a few people were following Amir al-Mu'mineen. You can count them with two hands. You've got Ammar, Mirdad, Salman, Maytham, and you can count them. There were so few people compared to the amount of Muslims that lived at that time that actually supported Imam Ali alayhi salam, that understood and appreciated his presence. Only a few people, only a handful of people. So sometimes events, people, tragedies that took place throughout history, the course of history, you see the influence and the impact after a couple of years, sometimes even centuries. Sometimes it takes centuries to understand the greatness of such individuals. Why? There could be different reasons to it. There could be different reasons. The Prophet ﷺ, he has a narration where he emphasizes this point as well. What is it? نَصَرَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا سَمِيَ مَقَالَتِي. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the person who listens to my words. فَوَعَاهَا وَبَلَّغَهَا مَنْ لَمْ يَسْمَعْهَا. And he preserves it, he listens to it, and he understands it, and he preserves it, and he conveys it to somebody who hadn't heard it before. فَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ غَيْرَ فَقِيهٍ. It's possible that he carries around knowledge, but he's not a faqih himself. He's not a knowledgeable person. So he conveys that knowledge to somebody who has the knowledge to understand what he was saying. وَرُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ أَفْقَى مِنْ. And sometimes he's knowledgeable and he carries around knowledge, but he conveys it to somebody who's more knowledgeable than him. What is it that the Prophet ﷺ is alluding to? That sometimes people, events, I don't know, ahadith, we get a deeper understanding of these things over time. Because we see the influence, we see the impact on society, on other human beings, and so on and so forth. So one of the events, or one of the tragedies that took place in human history, which is of one of the it's one of these types of events that has a great impact, and year by year, decades after decade, centuries later, you find out the greatness of that tragedy or that event. That's Ashura. Ashura is one of those events. In what sense? So back in the days, when you look at some of the historical sources we have about individuals that were close to Ashura, they said the grandson of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he was killed, and that was a tragedy. That's it. They had a very superficial understanding of Ashura. But today you see our fuqaha. Just to mention one example, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, one of his books about Ashura, what is it that he says? He said, today you can describe Ashura not only as a discipline, but a school of thought. It's a university with different disciplines. Why? You find theology in Ashura. You find ethics in Ashura. You find tafsir in Ashura. You find hadith in Ashura. You find history in Ashura. You find patience. You find persistence. Whatever you can think of, you'll find that in Ashura. It's a school of thought with so many disciplines in comparison to other events where it's not like that. It's not like that. So Ashura can be discussed in three different ways, or can be approached in three different ways. We can look at the causes first and foremost. What caused the people of Kufa who invited Imam Hussain alayhi salam towards Karbala or to Kufa? What caused them to betray Imam Hussain alayhi salam? You can discuss that. What was the reason why Yazid had an issue with Imam Hussain to begin with? And Bani Umayyah? All the significant individuals that resided in Mecca and Medina at that time, they were sons of great companions according to themselves. They call themselves greats, right? Abdullah ibn Umar, he was there. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, they were there. So you had these individuals that were quite famous. They were famous, everybody knew them. They respected them as being sons of companions. How come they were passive? How come they didn't join Imam Hussain alayhi salam? That's a discussion for itself. Or you can discuss the universality of Karbala, of Ashura. So sometimes we see certain individuals, especially in our time, yeah, because now what's going on in Gaza, a lot of people, they'll be like, don't speak about the universality of Ashura. As if Ashura is what? Something which is bound by time and place. In Iraq, something happened 1,400 years ago, you cannot speak about it today. Or if you're going to speak about it today, don't make any comparisons. We're going to discuss about that as well, inshallah. Or you can discuss the lessons that we can learn from Ashura. Because if you accept there's different lessons that we can draw inspiration from, then obviously the universality of Ashura will be proven. The universality of Ashura, that it's timeless and it's not bound by time, gets proven by itself. If there's a lesson that you can learn from Ashura, that's one of the downside, or that's the backside of the coin here. If you claim that no, Ashura was a specific event that took place 1,400 years ago, you can't draw inspiration from it, there's no lessons to it, what purpose does it serve today then? Other than us shedding tears? And can that be proven in the words of Imam Hussain alayhi salam himself? Like we shouldn't compare that at all? No inspiration, no comparisons? We're not saying it's identical, or else it wouldn't be a comparison. A comparison means that we understand that there's differences. You can't compare the hujjah of Allah being killed, of course not. And nobody claimed that the hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is equal to any other person, regardless of they're innocent or not. That's not my discussion. But you can't, of course you can't compare that. Nobody compares that. That's not the discussion here. It's about when we face oppression, how should we deal with it? And another lesson that we can learn from Ashura, it's also the motives behind Imam Hussain alayhi salam going against or revolting against Yazid. Because that's related to our discussion, the discussion we had the last few nights. Last few nights, what we've been discussing, establishing an Islamic lifestyle, yeah, is also related to some of the motives that Imam Hussain alayhi salam he explained about. He explained about. Why? Because one of the many lessons that we can learn from Ashura is one thing, and that's the responsibility that Imam Hussain alayhi salam he had, and which stands out. What is it that I mean? Look, when you look at different speakers, when they explain about Ashura, normally they have a tendency to fall over to one of the extremes. Either he was searching or he was fighting for government. A lot of people that mention that. You have a lot of historians that be like, Imam Hussain, he fought for government. He wanted to establish a government. The people of Kufa, they invited him. He wanted to establish a government and basically oppose Bani Umayyah. That's one of their opinions. Then you got another opinion, and that is, no, he knew that he would get killed, and therefore he sought martyrdom. So Imam Hussain alayhi salam was like one of the, now I'm not going to mention it, but there was an individual, he once said something, he called it a divine something, I'm not even going to mention it, how bad that was, and he repented for that as well, so I'm not going to mention it. But anyways, so this person, he said something, he said, no, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he went towards Karbala knowing that he would get killed, and therefore it was basically, he wanted martyrdom, he was seeking martyrdom. But that's not true. If you look at the words of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he was there to carry out a responsibility. And either it would end up with a government or it would end in martyrdom. But that was not important for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The important thing for Imam Hussain, or the main thing for Imam Hussain, was that he was carrying out his responsibility only for the sake of Allah. Whether it would end up with a government or he would end up getting martyred, doesn't make a difference for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And that's one of the lessons that you and I can learn as well. In other words, don't only focus on the results. Sometimes in the West, they teach us to do what? Be very result orientated. Only focus on the results. Where in Islam, we say, no, do your duty, regardless of the results. Yes, if something comes your way, inshallah, be happy for it. Have tawakkul. Do your part, your responsibility. But when it comes to the results, no, you do. That's tawakkul basically. You rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not your own efforts. That's what distinguishes believers from non-believers or disbelievers. That we actually believe in what? That the results in it is in the hands of Allah. We just have to carry out our duty. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he had the exact same mindset as well. And the reason why he revolted against Yazid was that as well. In other words, he had a responsibility. And what was that responsibility? The governor of Medina at that time, Al-Walid, he sent a message to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, telling him that Muawiyah has passed away. Muawiyah has passed away, and he has chosen his son Yazid to be the Khalifa, and you have to give bay'ah. What happened? Marwan ibn Hakam, he tried to put pressure on Al-Walid to have a meeting with Imam Hussain alayhi salam and force Imam Hussain alayhi salam to give bay'ah. So they were trying to force Imam Hussain alayhi salam to give bay'ah. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he gathered some of the youth from Bani Hashim. They had swords with them. They went to have a meeting with Al-Walid. This beautiful sentence, or this beautiful hadith, is from there as well. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely we belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Him we return. Wa ala al-Islam as-salam. And you can bid farewell to Islam. إِذَا بُلِيَتِ الْأُمَّةِ بِرَاعٍ مِثْلَ يَزِيدٍ بِرَاعٍ مِثْلَ يَزِيدٍ. And you can bid farewell to Islam if the nation of my grandfather, the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, will be tested with an oppressor like Yazid. Ra' basically means a ruler. Ra'in mithl Yazid. What is it that Imam Hussain alayhi salam? Look at the universality of the words of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He's not saying Yazid specifically. He said mithl Yazid, like Yazid. In other words, it could be Yazid, it could be Fir'aun, it could be Namrud, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This is for the people that say no, you can't compare. Yeah? Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he says that. He gives us the standard, the general principle, and you apply it to your time. He said, mithl Yazid. Inni silmun liman sanamakum. We are in peace with those who are in peace with you. What does that mean? The companions that passed away 1,400 years ago? Oh no, because they embodied all the virtues, and anybody who embodies the same virtues or stand for the same values of, like the companions of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that's the people we are in peace with. وَإِنِّي حَرْبٌ لِمَنْ حَارَبَكُمْ. What does that mean? Is there Ashura? That we should go kick the grave of Muawiyah and Yazid in Syria and Damascus? That we are in war with the graves of these individuals, these mal'unin? Of course not. Anybody who resembles Yazid or Muawiyah in character, values, and ideas, inni harbun liman harabakum. Why? They oppose the values that ahlebait alayhim salam did convey to us. They oppose that. They oppose that. In another narration, mithli la yubayya mithlah. A person like me does not give oath to who? A person like him. He doesn't say, Hussein, I don't want to give bay'ah to Yazid. He said, a person like me. A person like me. Now you look at the character of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. You look at the ideas and the values of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. And you look at the ideas, values and principles of Yazid, and you'll find out who is it exactly that we should oppose. Imam Hussain alayhi salam is emphasizing what? The universality of what? Of Ashura. He's doing it himself. And then you have certain people that be like, no comparisons. No comparisons whatsoever. Then how are you going to get any lessons out of Ashura? Then how are you going to be inspired by Ashura then? If you can't make any comparisons whatsoever. In fact, you should understand that, look, when it comes to oppression there consists of three elements. You got the oppressor, you got the what we call the silent multitude, the dark army, the people that are passive, and then you got the people that accept being oppressed, that accepts being oppressed. What is it that when Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he saw the army of Yazid towards Karbala, on his way to Karbala, what is it that he said? He said, Ya Yohannas. He gave a lecture, he gave a speech. What is it? He said, oh people, Inna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa qal. He quotes the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال من رأى منكم سلطانا جائرا. The ones among you, the one who sees an oppressor, sultan, oppressive ruler, جائرا مستحلا لحرم الله. مستحلا لحرم الله. And he allows that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made unlawful. ناكثا بأحده. And he breaks the covenant. مخالفا لسنة الله. And he opposed the sunnah and the tradition of the Holy Prophet. يعمل في عباده بالإثم والعدوان. And he treats the servants with sins, or he promotes sins amongst them, and he treats them with oppression and he oppresses them, what happened? فَلَمْ يُغَيِّرْ مَا عَلَيْهِ بِقَوْلٍ وَلَا بِفِعْلٍ. And a person, he sees such a person who does that, and he doesn't try to change the situation or the state that he's in, or the situation or the society to make a change, either through words or actions. What happened? كَانَ حَقًّا عَلَى اللَّهِ أَن يُدْخِلَ مَدْخَلَهُ. Then it's the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He put you, the person who's quiet, who's passive, or accepts what? Oppression. That puts him in the same place as the oppressor. In other words, in the hellfire. So, three categories, the three elements of oppression, yeah? All of them, they will be in the hellfire. All of them. Not only the oppressor, not only Yazid, but also the people that were passive, because they were the one that allowed Imam Hussain to be killed. Let alone the people that accepted oppression. Shaykhna, who were the ones that accepted oppression? You see, some of the people that were in the army of Yazid, they were only there because they were scared that Yazid, he would punish them. So they ended up killing the Imam at that time. That was the reason. Are you telling me that Ashura is limited to a specific time or period or bound by time, or is it timeless? When Imam Hussain himself, he says, whoever sees an oppressor or ruler, and he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say Yazid, he doesn't even mention his name. He doesn't even mention his name. And then he gives all the criteria. A person who's an oppressor. Not only that, he opposes the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. Now you tell me, out of all these sifat, all these criteria that you mentioned, tell me which one of them doesn't apply to this genocidal entity that we are fighting today. You tell me that. Which one of them? كَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْهِ أَن يُدْخِلَ مَدْخَلَهُ. Now you be passive, you accept what's going on. And you tell Imam Hussain, no, I'm going to be amongst the people of paradise. I'm going to shed tears for you. I don't want you to shed tears. Let me tell you who shed tears for Imam Hussain. The people that were pulling thorns out of the feet of Imam Hussain after they took them as captives. You know that? In one of the maqatil, we read that what? The people that took Imam Hussein's children, his daughter, as a captive, he was shedding tears while he was pulling the thorns out of the feet. Why? Because he loved them. He had affection for the daughters of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He loved Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But he was the one that took them as captives. Why? Because of his fear. He was scared. Now you tell me, can we discuss the universality of Ashura or not? It's quite clear. One of the most important lessons of Ashura, respected brothers and sisters, that is what Imam Hussain alayhi salam teaches us. In his wasiyah, he mentions this as well, that he came to reform the nation of his grandfather. What is it that he said? إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَالِبِ الْإِسْلَامِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. I came to reform the nation of my grandfather. Not reform as diluting Islamic teachings like we see today. No, because you have to understand, Yazid at that time, what is it exactly? What was his crime? He closed the door and he became an obstacle for people in that society to establish an Islamic lifestyle. This is how it's related to our discussion. This is exactly what Yazid did. Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he explains that in a beautiful narration. He said, Bani Umayyah, you know what they do? They used to make it free for people to study about the Iman, faith. But they will be quiet about shirk and kufr. Why? Because when they used to force shirk and kufr upon the people, they wouldn't understand what it was. They wouldn't understand it. So when they used to, let's say for example, legislate laws that went against the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people were confused. He said, no, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can have your beliefs. Just like some of these Muslim rulers that we see around the world today. Exactly the same. Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he said that was the issue with Bani Umayyah. That's exactly what they did. So when they killed God's representative on this earth, nobody understood the kufr in it. They even competed. No, let's get rid of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, so Salatul Asr won't be late. This was the mindset. Because of what? Bani Umayyah. Bani Umayyah. This was the ummah, the nation that Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he wanted to reform. And he continues. وَأُرِيدُ أَنْ آمَنَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. I wish to enjoin the good. وأنهى عن المنكر, and forbid that which is evil. وأسير بسيرة جدي, and it, through the same methodology as my grandfather. وأبي علي عليه السلام, and my father Ali ibn Abi Talib عليه السلام. And why is that? Because Yazid, he didn't allow people to establish, he basically derailed the train of Islam. He derailed the train of Islam. People, they didn't understand what Iman and Kufr means anymore. Like what it means to have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They diluted Islamic teachings that a person, which according to Ibn Kathir, كان دائم الخمر, كان دائم الخمر, that he was drunk all the time. Da'im al-Khamr, like, is basically a person from childhood who's been drunk all the time. And he did that in the name of being the successor of the Prophet. Imagine. And that's only a few years after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. He could allow himself to claim that he was the successor of the Prophet, Khalifatul Rasul, and at the same time kill the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ. Take the family of the Prophet ﷺ as captives. When they arrived in Sham, people thought that they were disbelievers. They thought they were disbelievers. They said, no, you revolted against the Khalifa of your time. You have left the fold of Islam. They considered them to be murtadeen. Only 60 years later after the Prophet ﷺ, he passed away. Yazid, he was an obstacle. Yazid, he blocked the way. He didn't allow people to establish a true Islamic lifestyle. Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, he saw that it was his responsibility to do something, to make sure that he removes all the obstacles, whether it's through a government or martyrdom. But a sacrifice has to be made here. A sacrifice has to be made here. And that's it. And the same applies to our time as well. Doesn't make a difference. That's why you see, when Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he describes in his wasiyah what he intended to do. He said, I'm not doing this to oppress anybody, to transgress or anything like that. I try to restore true Islamic teachings. Respected brothers and sisters, if we want to follow the footsteps of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, saying that it's bound by time or just shedding tears is not enough. It's not enough. Why? Because then we deserve to be put in the same place as the oppressor. Why? Because we're not trying to change it at least through words. At least through words. So what was the intention of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? He describes that, or he describes the seerah of his jad, of his grandfather. Where is it that defined? In the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Holy Quran, what is it that He says? Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, all the people that believe, istajibu lillah wa lirrasul, idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. Answer the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet when they call you to that which revives you. Respected brothers and sisters, Ashura is not only an external revolution, it is equally an internal one that revives the heart. And you see that throughout the history of Islam. Ashura became the downfall of Bani Umayyah. Because after what happened in Ashura, movement after movement started to revolt against Bani Umayyah. And it became the downfall. Even Bani al-Abbas, la'anatullah alayhim, when they gained power, you know how they did it? They claimed that they were taking revenge for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So even Bani al-Abbas getting rid of Bani Umayyah was due to what? The sacrifice of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. The sacrifice of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. They took advantage of it. They saw that everybody are going against Bani Umayyah because of what? Because he committed the biggest mistake in his life, Yazid, at that time. So basically through the sacrifice he made, he paved the way for people to establish a true Islamic lifestyle so they are able to be reunited with their Lord again. Why? It revived the hearts of people. In a society where people accepted him as the successor of the Prophet, an alcoholic being the successor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he revived the hearts of people in such a society. Not only in that society, but for centuries to come as well. And who perfected that revolution? No other than Lady Zainab Salamun alayha. She was the one who perfected the revolution. Because the first part of Ashura ended in Karbala. And after that, who conveyed the message of Ashura to the rest of the society? That was Lady Zainab Salamun alayha. She was the second commander in the army of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Before Karbala, insight. In Karbala, she had patience. After Karbala, she was steadfast. She was steadfast. To an extent that when they brought her to the palace of this mal'oon and she was standing in front of them, and they stopped mocking Lady Zainab and the martyrs of Karbala, look how she replies. Look how she replies. وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ. The people that disbelieve shouldn't think that we're prolonging their life. خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ. In their benefit. No, if you have a long life, don't think it's in your benefit. إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. We're only going to prolong your lives because of what? So you can continue doing bad or doing evil, and for you waits a what? A severe punishment. You will be punished severely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only reason why He prolongs your life is so you can dig your grave even deeper. You can destroy yourself even more. The same applies to this genocidal entity that we see today as well. It is as if Lady Zainab Salamun alayha, she was standing there and she was looking into the future. Do you think that we lost this battle? In fact, you're going to see in the future. Because it will be the sons and daughters of Ashura for centuries to come that would fight oppression. Now you watch. Now you watch. Lady Zainab Salamun alayha, the verse that she recited, most beautiful verse. Most beautiful verse. Why? It teaches us that what? That even if they have a long life, it's not going to be in their benefit. Why? There will be people that are going to oppose them. And that's exactly what we see. 1,400 years with the inspiration of Ashura, we've survived. Not only that, we have grown stronger as well. To an extent that even other people, like other schools of thought, they're relying on the help of the sons of Ashura, the daughters of Ashura, to be saved. Because they're the only ones actually doing something for them. Look at Gaza today. We're proud that it's the followers of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Even this famous shaheed from the West Bank, I forgot his name, he said, if you can't be a Hussaini, at least be a Zainabi. If you can't be a Hussaini and sacrifice your lives against the oppressor, at least be a Zainabi and convey the message. Convey the message. 1,400 years later, when she was standing in the palace, as if she saw the future. Generation after generation, they're going to oppose oppression and oppressors. This is the universality of what? Ashura. So don't be fooled by these individuals that come forward and be like, no, you can't compare the two. What do you mean? Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he compares it. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he emphasizes the universality of Ashura in his statements. Are you telling us we can't compare them? Why would he say, mithli la yubay'a mithla? A person like me doesn't give bay'ah to a person like him. Why would he define what kind of people that we should oppose if it was only limited to Yazid at that time? Why? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So if we want to understand Ashura in its right context, respected brothers and sisters, look at the words of Imam Hussain himself. The lessons that we are taught from Ashura. How Ashura paved the way for us to establish an Islamic lifestyle. Because we talked about an Islamic lifestyle for several nights. This supposed to do what? Make us appreciate that Imam Hussain he paved the way for us. Trust me, if it wasn't because of the sacrifice of Imam Hussain